Candyman was directed by Nia DaCosta and is a direct sequel to the 1992 movie of the same name, much like Halloween in 2018, which essentially foregoes all the other sequels that followed that original 78 movie. That's essentially what this film is also doing here. So right out the gate, if you haven't seen any of the Candyman sequels, then you've just seen the first one, you can go straight into this one. A bit of the movie, and I don't want to give too much away in case you've not seen any of the trailers, which even I haven't seen yet. So if there are more details revealed in that trailer, fair enough. But I want to try and preserve the experience for those who are going in blind as much as I can. I actually made a double feature out of this. I watched the 92 movie on Peacock. It was streaming there. And then while I was watching that one, I got the email from Universal with the screener for the 2021 version. So as soon as I was done with that, I went straight into this new movie. And I have a lot of thoughts. In fact, I've been mulling these thoughts over for several hours now, ever since I saw the movie, because there's a lot I want to say, and there have been several false starts on this review. And much like the Green Knight review last week, there's a lot that I have on my mind. The original Candyman movie is a very interesting movie because while it is also a slasher horror movie towards its second act as the body count is piling up, the film also focuses a lot more on the reason for Candyman's existence, the legend that has prevailed over the years, as well as looking into the neighborhood, the Cabrini neighborhood, the projects that used to be there before the gentrification happened, and essentially focusing in on why Candyman's name comes up there so often and how so many of the actions, the things that takes place there, they all are attributed to the presence of this being. The new version does a lot to double down on those things and essentially talk more about those aspects rather than focus on the goriness and horror of things. But in the same time, it creates something very, very interesting. Right now, I'm going to give you one of the best positives I have of this movie. Whereas the first movie focused in on the tragedy of Candyman, but it also made it more like he's a vengeful, horrific thing who would kill you and kill everybody around you. This movie tries to go for a more tragic side to it and essentially look at it from the point of view of something much more modern. And the commentary that DaCosta fuses into it regarding what it means to be black in America, police brutality, racial segregation, all of those things come to a head here and essentially make up a framework of the character that I found very fascinating. Essentially, he went from someone who is this terrifying force of nature to somebody you can't help but feel weirdly sympathetic for at times, because when you look at the histories and all of the things that have led to this character's being, there is something about it which is deeply tragic, and the film manages to accomplish that in a very interesting way. I think DaCosta really, really shines here. But that's not to say there are no other gory or slasher kind of sequences in this. There are, and those are also directed wonderfully. She manages to, for the most part, create a very good balance of those thematic elements, those deeper elements, while also creating a direct sequel which comes with the kills, some very gnarly kills in fact, and a lot of them done in very innovative ways thanks to some excellent cinematography, some of the best of the year. This is a beautiful looking movie, and there's some of those kills, I gotta say, are very interesting. One in particular, the way it's shot, I thought was incredible, and it might be visually one of my favorite kills in a horror movie recently. It's a wonderfully handled sequence. The performances, especially Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, are amazing. Everybody does a really good job in this. I really liked what he did with Anthony though, because his character doesn't remain on one level throughout. It's not like things start to happen, it's like, oh, things are happening. Anyway, back to painting. It's taking a toll on him. All of the things that are happening, he's questioning things, he's trying to question his own reality, whether or not the fact that Candyman himself is actually real or not, which is a very interesting parallel that is created with Virginia Madsen's character, Helen, in the first movie. And while they're not going through necessarily the same experience, in fact, not at all, some moments here and there definitely allude between the two of them. There are a couple of parallels here and there. In fact, you will find parallels like that throughout the entire movie. there are definitely little things here and there that they definitely attributed to, which I found to be interesting. And the film manages to do that in very seamless ways for the most part. Also, really like the score in this movie. While it is being its own thing, it also acts as a bit of a spiritual follow-up to Philip Glass's beautiful work in 1992. And it brings those two together in a very cohesive way. One of the things that, like I said, I liked about this movie is the fact that it's managing to connect those dots in the most effective ways possible. However, one of the flaws that I have with this movie also comes down to the things that I've been talking about so far that I thought were very interesting. Because while it handles those themes in very interesting ways, certain things, for instance, are brought up, but they're much more on the surface rather than delved into as deep as they wanted it to be dealt with. And so when certain scenes happen later in the movie and the film is trying to make a certain point of them, it's like you get what they're saying, but also it just feels like we're doing this now. All right, we're going to move on to something else all of a sudden. And so it doesn't feel like it gets the time to become as big a presence and become as big a deal as much as the film wants it to be. And sometimes I feel like that could be a detriment. While there are things about it that I think work, and I think the more you think it over and on rewatches, that might certainly help. I think the film definitely could have used a little more spacing out, a little more time to sort of breathe. Would that have been a longer runtime? Maybe. There were points of this where I thought it would have made an interesting limited series, in fact, a horror series. But more precisely, I just feel like DaCosta does take a massive swing here. But I would rather a movie take a massive swing and not completely hit a home run rather than a movie that doesn't take any chances at all and essentially takes the safe route. I very much respect the direction that DaCosta decided to take. And for that reason, I do really like this movie. Is it a perfect movie? No. It's a film that definitely does a lot of things. It has some great performances, some really great direction, some very good cinematography, some very poignant aspects of it brought up, some very interesting commentary to offer. And it does most of those things really, really well for the most part. Until a third act, which is going to be divisive, I think. Some people are either going to hate the way things go or like how it goes or be in between. It's an ending that I've been thinking about, and it's one of those striking things that it's a massive swing that DaCosta takes towards the end. And I'm curious to hear from a lot of people what they end up thinking of this movie. In fact, I feel like this movie is going to have a lot of opinions going around. I feel like there's not going to be a lot of proper consensus on this movie. There's not going to be a major consensus. The critics, most of them seem to be enjoying this, but I feel like audiences are going to be split down the line. And so I'm very interested in seeing how that goes. I'm going to give Candyman an 8 out of 10. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Have you seen Candyman yet? What are your thoughts on it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about, so if you do, please do that. And as always, if you like this, please just subscribe. You guys, it will really help the channel. And if you're enjoying this video, please leave a like. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. I say that again. And I'll see you guys at the movies.